Good morning, kia ora, morena. It is Spa Saturday here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I wanted to do a live today on a course that I was watching last night. It's currently free. It's by Alex Howard, and he is doing the Trauma Super Conference again. And if you get in every 24 hours, they release the talks for free. And last night, before I went to bed, I listened to Alex Howard do a therapy session with a 50-year-old woman who had severe anxiety and depression. And a couple of little takeaways that I wanted to share with you today is that this woman had gone through life, raised 4 kids, had a successful career, quite busy, quite engaged, but had problems throughout life that she managed to navigate, I guess, even though they were quite large problems, and a lot of it stemmed from her childhood as well. And she ended up in Alex Howard's office for some therapy because her kids had left home, her marriage had ended, and she was not in a good state mentally. And it was really sort of profound when she was talking through her history with Alex, and she was in her beta brainwave state. She was very engaged and be able to articulate her history quite well and where she was. And then she got to a point where he asked a question, I can't remember exactly what it was, and where she revealed that she actually hated herself, and then the tears came. And I think there's a lot of people that get to a point in life where they think, what's the purpose, what's the use, what's the good in me? And unfortunately, by the time they kind of really get to that point, it can be quite devastating. Hello, my darling, my son's just woken up. I'm just doing a little video for everybody, sweetheart. You gonna give me a kiss and go watch some TV, eh? Good boy. And I'll come in and have a cuddle with you in a minute, alright, sweetie? And that was a nice way to start my day. I woke up before him, which is very rare. And this lady had gone into quite a bad anxious loop, and again, I see that a lot, and I've been there myself, when you start a thought and then you start looking for beliefs in that. So you might think that you're hopeless, and then you start looking for evidence to support that, and then all of a sudden, because you might find evidence because you're looking for it, the thoughts are encouraged and positively reinforced, so you say more of those kind of things to yourself, and before you know it, you've got this crazy 8 loop of anxiety and seeking evidence and doing things in your behaviour to reinforce what you think about yourself. And it can get quite bad if you can't stop that cycle. And this woman ended up starting with anxiety and then went into quite a bad depression because of it. The other thing that she mentioned, which I thought was interesting, and I could relate to a situation that I've been privy to recently, was that she, from a young child, she felt like she hadn't been seen or heard or held emotionally, and that to get that attention from her parents, she would see everything as a travesty, or see things in a medical way that were really adverse. So she would start feeling sick and wonder whether she's got leukemia, and then she would ask her parents whether she could possibly be dying. And it got to a point where then she transferred that anxiety onto her children, where she would panic about them when they were when they had arrived, and the panic and the anxiety of whether they were sick or not really overtook her. So it's a matter of where your thoughts just overtake you and that you can't get control of them, and then, like I said, you go into that crazy 8 loop where it's very hard to get control of that situation. And I related that to a scenario that I'm connected to a mother's group online, and a woman reached out and said she was feeling quite anxious, and that she needed help, and she wondered whether anybody could recommend someone to help her. She was worried about her children. Whenever they went on a playground, she would really panic. And a lot of people reached out to her, which was really lovely, and I ended up asking or saying to her, if you're interested in hypnotherapy, I'll give you a free session, because that anxiety as a mother, I've felt that, not to that extent, but certainly I know that invariably it relates to something from childhood, something that we've already got in us, and then we're just transferring it to our children, like this woman did that Alex Howard interviewed. And this lady was really grateful for the offer, and I read a couple of the other comments that were written by the local mothers, and one in particular, who was well-meaning, basically said that anxiety as a mother is normal, and that pretty much that she'll be right. And and she prefaced it as, Mia is amazing, but anxiety is normal, blah 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 blah. And my perception totally, so I might be wrong, but my inference of that response was that you really don't need help, and anxiety is quite normal, and just, you know, take a breath. And at least she finished the post with, just breathe, which is really lovely advice for someone that is in control. But the point that you're out of control, and particularly the point that you're asking for help, and particularly publicly, as this woman did, or going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a doctor or a counsellor or a hypnotherapist or whatever you choose, and saying, I'm not coping, at that point there's no benefit in telling somebody just breathe. I remember I saw a counsellor years ago when I was in a bit of a crisis, and he said to me I had to take control of my thoughts. And again, well-meaning, but ironically I was able to, which I think I just shut everything out. I had to shut everything down, what I was thinking, and unfortunately I had to deal with a relationship at the time, so I continued with the relationship and just stuck my head in the sand. But he never taught me, he never showed me how I could take control of my thoughts. And now I know, because I've been trained, and I tell my clients the switch technique is an amazing technique to start to get control of your thoughts. And I have done a video about that, so I won't go too much into it, but it is a NLP technique, a neuro-linguistic programming technique, and it's really catching the negative thought that you have in your mind. So either by clicking or just catching it and just saying switch, and then whatever you want as the opposite. And I just recommend that you say everything's going to be okay, and you breathe that through. And sometimes you have to do that so many times when it first starts, if you've got constant mind chatter going on, and you might think that it's never going to stop. I remember with that relationship situation I had, I was in the shower one day and I was thinking constantly about the what ifs, and what am I going to do, and what am I going to say, and what, you know, and it was just busy, overwhelmingly busy and draining. And so I started to do the switch technique. You know, switch, everything's going to be okay, breathe that through. The thought would come back in, switch, everything's going to be okay, breathe that through. And it took so many times, and I remember thinking, this isn't going to work. And then eventually it did, and it wasn't really profound. It was a moment of going, oh, hang on a minute, that thought isn't overtaking me, that thought isn't overpowering me. It was able to come and go a lot quicker, and I was able to come back to a state of equilibrium, a state of calm. And so what you're doing really is changing your neural pathways to prefer the calm feeling more than the anxious thought. So I can post the little video I did about this, so you can check out my YouTube channel. I do a little video about that switch technique and how powerful it can be in terms of grabbing hold of your negative thoughts about yourself. Because really, if you feed those negative thoughts, then, as I said, you start looking for evidence of them, and you get into this crazy 8 loop where, like this lady did that Alex Howard interviewed, ended up just openly saying, I hate my life, I don't see the point. And so now, you know, she has engaged in professional services to help her get out of that, which is sometimes what people need, because they can't actually get themselves out of that negative cycle themselves. But I thought I'd share that. If you're interested in the trauma conference that's currently, like I said, they release the talks free for 24 hours. It's really interesting learning. It's really, I find it fascinating to hear from a whole different range of practitioners that deal with trauma and techniques that they use. And I'll finish on that note. The technique that he recommended that she do before their next session was to journal. And really that is something that is just bringing the unconscious to the conscious and hone in on the issue. And I would recommend that to my clients as well, so that she write every day before he came to her again exactly what her thoughts are, exactly what she's saying to herself, what might be influencing that, just to get some really clear awareness about what the problem is. Because it might be that the end state is that she hates herself, but it might be some really specific thoughts within that a therapist could deal with to really help her unpack and heal that wound. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll say goodbye to you all. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world. I better go in and give my little boy a cuddle. Mā te wā.